I was asked to introduce Jim, actually on the walk from the parking lot.
Yeah, I think we're very organized.
Jim, are you there?
Yeah, is there?
Yes.
Is there?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we all know Jim.
Nice job.
Jim is one of the most talented, energetic guys that I've ever met. He's a serial entrepreneur. He started with leapfrog. How many of you have children who use leapfrog? Yes. He's done a bunch of other companies. Last time I talked to him, I think it was 7 or 8 that he has founded, including iFluence that he sold to Google, and a bunch of other companies. His current company is called Kinoo, Kinoo, and it's kind of an updated version of Leapfrog. It is a company that has software, hardware, a wand for the kids for learning. The target for that is mostly grandchildren of this group between the ages of 4 and 7 years old. What's also amazing is his family. MJ is got a doctorate in confined space travel, of all things. In other words, she wants to go to Mars. Yep. And then Blake and Annie. Annie is a member of the club. Both of them have founded companies. Blake has already sold one of his companies. And I don't know if he's 30 yet, but he's well known in Rotary International. We did a virtual reality event at a Rotary International meeting. Was it Toronto?
Atlanta.
But the largest virtual
Atlanta.
largest virtual reality event ever. He is an amazing member of this club, and I'm anxious to see what he has to say today. Thank you.
Thank you, Spike, and it's good to be here virtually. It's relevant today, particularly as I speak about the power of virtual connectivity. Can you see my whole screen, or is there a black bar on the right side?
We're good.
We're good. Okay, great. Thank you. So, question: what do a snowball and a long tail have in common? A snowball and a long tail. They describe what happens when people, ideas, and passion come together, which has been the case with the Global Impact Group that I'll speak about this morning, and what's happened on a timeline since 2017. So, and this works this way. If you think about a snowball, use this analogy once early on in the creation of the Global Impact Group. But a snowball starts down a hill, it gets bigger and bigger, and as it does, it reaches a certain size where it breaks apart. And when it breaks apart, these little snowballs continue rolling down the hill, and they become bigger snowballs. But what is a long tail? A long tail in marketing is when an idea hits, and at first it's explosive, and then it seems to fade in popularity. But over time, the idea continues to linger, and more value is created, and the long tail can be more impactful than the original idea. So those two come together in an interesting way because that cycle and those elements have been repeated in the Global Impact Group. So first, some context. I've showed this slide many times. I've started a few companies, but here's the key point. In 1998, MJ and I moved here and I was working on Leapfrog. And my neighbor, John Linneman, who many of you remember, is not with us now, John said, hey, come to Rotary. And he badgered me year after year after year. He said, come down to our club. So finally, I came down and I spoke about the Leap Pad. And a couple of years later, he said, hey, please come again, speak. You can talk now about this idea, LiveScribe Pen. So I came back and spoke about that. And at that point, after that company went forward, it was acquired, I said, I'd really like to get closer to the club. So join the club around 2010. And at that point, by 2013, I was a regular club member and then made a presentation in 2013. I presented this idea of using wearable eye tracking to help people with disabilities. Well, lo and behold, at the end of my presentation, 5 hands went up and they all had the same question. And the question was, can we invest? And so they did. And that was my initial investors in this company that became iFluence. Well, within 3 years, we had a good outcome, sold the company to Google. And at that point, Don Jenkins, who'd been part of this, reached out and said, hey, Jim, let's get together. Let's take some of the money that was made and let's pay it forward into Rotary. So this is the meeting, and these are the people who were at this meeting, which was quite fateful. And David Awal said, hey, I have an idea. Rather than just put it into a single project, let's make this scalable and sustainable so we can do something. Maybe do a bike-a-thon and we raise more money. So I had this crazy idea. I was in Google and was working on cardboard and said, what about a VR-a-thon? What the likes of VR-a-thon? And I said, here's what we could do. We could create content using VR with Google Cardboard, put it together, help raise money, create awareness, bring more people into Rotary. So took that idea to Google. My manager, who had reported to Sundar Pichai, the CEO, said, hey, yeah, let's do it. So I embarked upon a path and things took off. And by January, that was November, by January, 2 months later, found myself presenting to Rotary's board and trustees. There was multiple language here with translation booths in the back of this room, presented this idea, very stern group. And at the end of the presentation, about 10 minutes, I thought, this is dead, not a chance. But instead, we put them in cardboards we'd arranged to be shipped there. We gave them the chance to experience VR for the first time for many people, and they loved it. It went from just dour to whoops and hollers and tears and laughter, and it was just a tremendous experience. So that was in January. Well, as Spike mentioned, by that May and by that June, we went to Bulgaria, to Bucharest, produced a VR piece of content, and Jane and Don Jenkins and our club and others stepped forward to help us raise money for this with support of Rotary International. And we produced something that was really unheard of before. And you see all these headsets that were people holding. If I'm holding one up right now, I pull out of my closet. And we had over 3,000 people simultaneously viewing this piece of VR content that was called One Small Act on Peace and Polio. It's the largest VR viewing co-located with a piece of content to our knowledge in world history. It hasn't been replicated since then. And it was quite extraordinary. So from there, we created this piece. If you could show me how many people, we don't have time to show this now, but how many people in the room have experienced One Small Act in VR? Okay, it looks like I can see full screen. It looks like probably about half the people. So it was an amazingly powerful piece. And after the first version, we subtitled it. We did voiceover on it, and it's still available today. And I could show it. To give you a sense, I'll show about 30 seconds of this. So here it is. And I can, by the way, on my screen, I can move this around, as you see. So conflict in civil war in Bosnia, we went back that period in time, replicated it with costumes and people, and brought people in VR to this environment. And here's what happened. This is filmed 360 degrees. Oops. See a little girl returning home, and we create the environment of what it would be like at that period in time if you were subject to war.
I remember when there was peace. We were happy. Safe.
I'm moving this around right now. There's your mom. I'll pause there. It's very powerful. And that when we filmed that, we had an air cannon outside the window. I was there. We blew in particles and other things. We did several takes of that shot. And this was in outside Bucharest, where we had an army of people with trucks and lights and cameras producing this piece of content. And we set the new bar for Rotary International. They had produced a piece of content before. This took it to an entirely new level to show what could be done with VR to raise money, which just continued to take the seed of the first piece they did and continue to move it forward. Okay, let me see if I can continue on here. So that was 2017. So we raised money, had this idea, took it forward. And at that time, at the event where we presented this, a fellow came up to me named David Cochran. And David's on with us today. David's from the Alpharetta Club in Georgia. And David said, I have an idea. I'd love to stay in touch with you and continue to speak about this. And I had no idea where we'd be going, but he was very bright and very, very passionate and said, there's something here. So that was 2017. 2018, let's take a look and see what happened. 2018 was a year of further exposure and more work on VR. And also the year whereupon we founded, through David's persistence and help, and other people, Jane, Louie, and some people in our club, we founded the Global Impact Group, set it up, defined our strategy. In 2019, we became a nonprofit formal entity, 501c3. By 20, we partnered with Rotary and more, and you'll see how this pans out. But here are the people that were core members. So David Cochran, Scott Dahl, a friend of David's, who's in Alpharetta as well, Jane Louie, the NorCal Club, District 5061, NorCal Rotary Club. Let's get that right. And of course, Skip on our team, and Dimitri, who's been a fellow I've known for many years from the Hawaii in the island of Hawaii, who's part of this as well. And there are other people involved that have been supporting us both in and out of our club and regionally. So that was a big year, because also I had the opportunity to speak about education and technology to many people at the annual convention in Toronto, which drew more attention to this idea and what we could do with this. And we created our second piece of content called The Sight of You, which was extremely powerful, much more powerful than the first one. It was on the impact that you put in a VR headset could have if you face-to-face saw the life of someone that was homeless or someone dealing with mental health issues. And you could affect their life by what you do in the VR experience. And you could see what life was like for them without you, and then what their life would be like with you as a Rotarian. Tremendously powerful. We shared this more broadly. You can see people in our club. That was back in Lafayette, the Park Hotel, and we continue to expose this. So those were highlights in 2018. So think about 2019. Where were you in 2019? Pre-COVID. What were you doing? At that point, we were working on the snowball, which is beginning to break into some other snowballs and beginning to get a bit of a long tail. So we continued to propagate the exposure of VR. And we did it, first of all, with the Global Impact Group, continue to drive this and to get more exposure. And we showed VR all over the world. Went to Hamburg, supported VR there, showed it at the Big West District Conference, Lafayette Art and Wine Festival. More and more people saw this, and more people liked the idea. And at that point, we had two pieces, and Rotary had created yet another piece. So a VR piece. So it was beginning to really roll. And at that point, pre-COVID, VR was still continuing to climb. So we thought there could be something amazing. And what did VR do for people? It helped with branding of Rotary, showing the impact that Rotary could have and we as Rotarians could have, helped us recruit new people, helped us raise money, and helped people learn about what was going on with Rotary in the world. So this proceeded. So that was 2019. And then, of course, COVID hit. So we said, what can we do with COVID? And a friend of mine brought this idea forward. You may remember, because at first it sounds like a snowball that exploded, but it actually had a long tail. And that idea was called Volunteer Surge, where we began to train people with the assistance of the Red Cross. At that point, the Yale School of Public Health, Salesforce had created a platform where people were desperate for bringing in volunteers that could help people with COVID. And so we began to work on that, and also had this idea of a hybrid video. So first of all, this idea, thank you for everyone that took the training for this. At the time, we thought, based upon a fellow that was a colleague of mine, that we could deploy thousands of people. There were over 1,000 people trained. We thought we could deploy them into nonprofit organizations that were looking for volunteers. It turns out it's easier to train than it is to deploy. So it was difficult. The organizations that were nonprofits weren't really set up to take volunteers in. Nevertheless, we had a lot of trained people on how to assist. And further, as the year went on, I was part of a task force at Rotary International that was looking at the future of hybrid meetings and digital meetings. And Rotary quickly, as you recall, our club stepped forward. We began doing Zoom meetings. And I said, gee, I wonder if we could do something else. What if we could create a video to show people how to do hybrid meetings? But how could we make that video interesting where people want to watch it? A meeting on hybrid meetings is not particularly interesting. So I said, let's have a speaker. In fact, let's have a dozen speakers. So was able to reach out and bring in these people. You may recall, how many people have seen the video of the hybrid meeting we did? Okay, it looks like probably a majority of people. So you remember that the lineup of people we had: Dr. Anthony Fauci, the chief scientist of the Gates Foundation, the chief scientist of the World Health Organization, the president, CEO of Gavi, President Holger of Rotary that year, the CEO of Rotary, John Huco, the dean of the Yale School of Public Health, Cliff Docterman, no longer with us, and the CEO of One Shared World. And we produced this video. Thank you so much for those of you who came to my garage and helped many people here, too many to list right now, helped us produce this. And we produced something that, again, set a new bar for Rotary. They saw what could be done with a video. From this, a really interesting idea sprouted. I won't take the time to show the video, but it is accessible to you. So that was 2020. So despite the fact we were all locked in our houses, now we were still taking ideas further and actively helping Rotarians and help people. 2021. So now we're really locked in and saying, okay, where do we go from here? Everybody's fatigued. Well, the first thing that happened is Jane and David and other people, Scott and Skip, continued to drive forward with this idea of volunteer surge and began to make traction. And we started participating as well, some of us, in virtual meetings that were VR virtual meetings. So the volunteer surge evolved with AARP and with the Veterans Administration. And this team, Jane, David, Scott, Skip, and others worked closely with the AARP and VA persistently, month after month, working with them on this new platform, retooling the platform. In the meantime, the platform was designed to recruit, to train, and to match Rotary volunteers for what was called a friendly voice, for people who were socially isolated, who were lonely, who were depressed. And that was working with the AARP and the VA until 2022, there was full adoption and that happened just this year by AARP and VA, and they're taking over a platform that grew from the midst of COVID, attempting to rally volunteers to help people. So all of the training that you did ultimately was part of a long tail that's continued to pay off. And there have been awards won for the Compassionate Contact Corps as a result of this contribution and this platform. So thank you. So meantime, we're still locked in and decided we could do some gatherings, and a club popped up called Rotary VR Universe, which is a VR club that hosts their meetings in VR. And so some people are represented with avatars you can see on the right, you can see one on other. It was quite an experience. So that's 2021 until 2022. So what's happened this year? Well, finally, we're out from under COVID, and that means a lot more movement that we can do. So you've heard of the ITZ. I'll speak a little more about that in the initiatives, and then we'll look to see where we're taking things from here. So at the ITZ, so this was sparked by the Global Impact Group. We discussed with Rotary International, gee, what could we do to show off technology and the applications of technology, how we can use technology inside Rotary? And driving this was a very, very passionate desire to continue to see that hybrid meetings survive and flourish inside Rotary. And post-COVID, we don't just return to clubs and close the doors. When that happens, the clubs that do that ultimately will have challenge in both being part of a much bigger Rotary that's about to blossom, that we'll contribute to as well. So further, Rotary, pre-COVID and then not able to show it, created set a new bar for virtual reality and did an underwater immersive experience that showed a Rotary club in the Philippines that built a reef and to reclaim an area where the fish had been overfished. And it was a Rotary wheel submerged, a large Rotary wheel with fish. And you could take part in that in a headset or in a large immersive room. And this took place this June in Houston. We also pulled together members from our club. Chuck was there, Skip was there, Buddy was there, Jane was there, as well as people from our Atlanta and Alpharetta. So we had quite an army of people. We had probably 15 or 20 people, volunteers that were supporting Rotary International in this roughly 10,000 square foot space. that had multiple stations. The stations were the VR station, the hybrid meeting station, where we were polling and promoting hybrid meetings, wanted to see what people thought. What we found is most people want hybrid meetings. Many don't know how to do them. They still need assistance. It's still a little tricky, we know in our club, but it can be done and it will continue to get easier. We also had this idea as a result of the video that we did on a library of videos, and I'll speak more to that in a moment. We did focus testing to see if Rotarians and clubs might be interested in access to good videos. And finally, I brought Canoe there for connection, because the glue that has held this together for me is connecting people to have impact on listening, on understanding, on affecting the future world, particularly with regard to world peace. So that took place at the ITZ in Houston. And there's David and Scott on the left. I was looking for pictures, hard to find them, but we have a few here. So there's the virtual reality station pre-opening of the show with chairs where people could sit. And again, this large room where people could sit if they didn't want to sit in a headset. So we also advanced this idea. We didn't announce a term at that point, but here's what this idea is. The idea is a repository of videos of the best of class speakers in Rotary clubs from around the world, because we regularly have awesome speakers. And our club, thanks to Buddy, and with an exemplar set by the video that we did during COVID, has something to talk about. We know how to create great speakers and produce videos that other people would like to see. And so we took this idea a year ago, and it was in March of 2021, began to speak to Rotary International about it and said, here's the problem to solve. Rotary, we need to increase our size, our age, and our diversity. Downsize, we need a diversity of age, of ethnicity, of gender. We need to increase our impact and our 7 areas of focus. We need to engage the world's most inspiring thought leaders, anyone in the world, to speak about and through Rotary. So to continue to do what Buddy has been doing and bring world-class speakers into Rotary and help other clubs do this as well, but then capture them, record them, create videos. Think a TED-like repository of videos that's available to any club in the world, many of whom don't have access to good speakers, and now they can gain access to these speakers. And finally, we want to assure ongoing hybrid virtual in-person meetings for all clubs, and by making this library available in a manner that supports that, we could do this. So that was a presentation in March of 2021 to the senior executives at Rotary International, and they said, great idea. It's something we would love to see this happen. We really are not set up to do this. What do you think? Can you make it happen? So we thought about that through 2021. We polled interest on this at the Houston event, and it was off the charts. The interest was huge. So that led us recently, now you know, we've been looking at people with Buddy and with our team, others as well, to say, gee, what could be the first set of prototype videos we use to show this off? And when could we do it? Could we have it ready for possibly a showing next year? So already we had Stephen Pfeiffer, who we identified as just a great speaker, speaking about the Ukraine, peace and conflict avoidance. We have coming up, of course, our video with Fauci and others. And we have coming up on December 4th, is it? I believe. Second. It's coming up very soon. We have a man who is recognized as a world leader in speaking about aging, but not just about aging, about healthcare, health technology, marketing, and a variety of topics. And he's become a friend of mine over the last few years, and uncannily, he lives in our community. He lives in Lafayette. And he's been speaking on this for now 30 years. He did 100 keynotes last year. You'll meet him next in a couple of weeks. 100 keynotes virtually. Some of these paid over $1 million to speak. He's that level of speaker. And so I thought I'd show a short video because you'll see this again, but let's take a look and see if this will play.
For over 40 years, Dr. Ken Dykewald has been recognized as the foremost visionary and original thinker regarding the lifestyle, financial, healthcare, and marketing implications of the longevity revolution. He is a psychologist, gerontologist, documentary filmmaker, entrepreneur, and best-selling author of 19 books. Dr. Dykewald has shared his vision in live presentations to over 2 million people. His research and strikingly accurate predictions have been regularly featured in leading media worldwide and have garnered nearly 20 billion media impressions. As founder and CEO of AgeWave, Dr. Dykewald has also been a highly valued advisor to many of our nation's top political and social leaders. As the world ages, every aspect of our society will be touched. However, it is the future of health, medicine, and longevity that will undergo the greatest transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ken Dykewald.
All right. So this should be phenomenal. We're getting word out on this. We're going to have a dry run of making sure our audio and video works well. Ken has put together a video custom for us. So what he does, he produces material, he takes materials from, based upon what we've asked him to do about aging, technology, marketing for this, to create a video we think would be of interest to Rotarians globally. This is our goal. So he's produced this. We'll be showing that, but he'll be with us live, or he'll be with us virtually. And we'll kick off, we'll show this because it's a more effective way to show something very powerful. And then he'll be live answering Q&A with us as well. So that's in 2 weeks. So please get the word out. We'll propagate this in social media and to other people in Rotary and see how many people we can bring to this. But we'll be filming this. And our goal is to film this as well as have shots of the club, put this in a high quality production. So this will be a premiere video that we'll use as a part of Rotary Speaks as a beginning video in this library we'd like to create to support the future of Rotary. And I'll say as well, just hold this up. I just received this from Ken yesterday. It's a new book that's just coming out called Radical Curiosity. A quote on the front cover is from President Jimmy Carter, and the back cover is an amazing group of people, Deepak Chopra, Peter Diamandis, and others. So it'll be a tremendous presentation. So that's Rotary Speaks. So let's see. Additionally, let me get past this. So that's 2022. So it's still going. We're still active, but let's look ahead and see what's coming. 2023. So here's what we're looking at. 2023, long list here, but we're discussing with Rotary International the possibility of several things. One is we've already submitted to do a breakout session in Melbourne, as we say, in Australia for the annual convention, and to speak about the future of Rotary Club meetings. Possibly, we're looking to see if we might do some form of holo presence for that, and speak about the metaverse with a company I'm affiliated with called Nowhere or Now Here. Hopefully, show something about the Rotary Speaks library and a launch library. I've connected with the head of all of events at Microsoft. Microsoft has events they hold for hybrid events that they now hold. Instead of pulling 50,000 people together at once, they hold a 3-day event that follows the sun around the world, which is why I put this picture in the upper right corner. And they host hybrid meetings that move from place to place with live groups of people connected to a central group of the conference. So I've already taken this to RI and said, gee, what could the future conference be, our annual convention? Could this be something that emulates what Microsoft does? And Microsoft said, hey, we work pro bono with nonprofits. So it made that connection. And we're speaking all of this at Microsoft about that possibility. And that could be a Microsoft Teams demo. All of these, by the way, what I'll tell you, ideas are great. Usually 80% of them don't occur, but it's the few that do that make a difference. So you have to start with many ideas to get a few that actually stick. So these are gestational at this point. Another idea is, and I'll show a couple videos, is a company I'm affiliated with called Mojo Vision. I've mentioned in the past, quite striking, AR in the form of a contact lens. And I'll show a short video on this. Also, I recently was at MIT and spoke with a fellow in their digital learning group and the dean there as well about peace, which I'm driven towards, and a VR piece of content called The Enemy. And I'd like to show that. I'll look at our time. I think we've got enough. And finally, just a very short note on updating Canoe. We're doing something of an extension and pivot from the connection that we did before. And I'm looking, as Spike mentioned, at reinventing reading for young kids with kinetic activity and evolving. Thank you as well, Eve, for your assistance here, because we're evolving this based upon feedback we've had into something next year that's quite exciting and striking. So we're taking feedback and getting proper product market fit. So how many minutes do I have left? That'll tell me which videos I can show. I have 3 videos I'd love to show.
What is AR?
Go for it.
Go for it. Okay. So AR, you're about to see what AR is, augmented reality. So VR, as you may recall, is when you're immersed in a headset. And the world, you can't see outside of your headset, but you're in a world that's created for you. Augmented reality, either with a phone that looks at the world and upon which in your image, there's another image that's presented, or it could be in a pair of glasses. The HoloLens from Microsoft is called augmented reality. Magic Leap created augmented reality. But imagine putting a pair of contacts on your eyes that deposit an image on your eyes, can see the world, it can allow you to control what you would like to access, seeing the internet through the contact lenses. So this is Mojo Vision. I'm meeting with Drew. I advise this company, meeting with Drew Sunday afternoon, and work with their senior staff fairly regularly. So here's a video on this. It's quite striking. Enjoy. I'll make it larger.
Modern technology promises to keep us more connected. But in surrounding ourselves with screens and devices, it feels as though we've lost something. Imagine if we could replace our screens with something that informs without distraction. Could we see differently, more clearly? Could it help us find that invisible edge when we need it most? Or allow us to connect in crucial moments, providing vital information in an instant? Introducing Mojo Lens, the world's first augmented reality smart contact lens. Put Mojo Lens on in the morning, and throughout your day, you'll have access to timely information without losing focus on the world around you. Mojo Lens is designed not to bombard you with data, but to elevate your vision by providing the information you need exactly when it's needed, all while letting you look like yourself. When it's not in use, the technology just fades away. We call this concept invisible computing.
Mojo's invisible computing solution will be a platform that gives you everyday superpowers and an invisible edge throughout your day. But before it does any of that, it first has to be a great contact lens that improves your natural vision even when it's off. Mojo Lens built-in display will give you augmented reality wherever you look. It even works with your eyes closed, putting you into an instant VR world.
The applications are nearly limitless, from being able to see in the dark or low light situations, to augmenting your memory with instant information, showing you real-time translation, or giving you a virtual teleprompter. One of our first medical applications is using AR overlays like edge detection and contrast enhancements to help people with vision impairments such as glaucoma and macular degeneration.
Building the world's first AR contact lens is a systems engineering problem, and therefore we've had to innovate in many different areas. The Mojo Lens includes thin film, biosafe batteries to power the system, as well as motion sensors to enable the world's most accurate eye tracking. We've also developed an extremely low-power image sensor that's used for computer vision and scene detection. But at the heart of the Mojo Lens is the world's smallest and densest dynamic display. With this, we can display crisp text, photos, and video in a package that's less than 0.5 millimeter in diameter. We are often asked, how do you control Mojo Lens? And the answer is with your eyes. It turns out that your eye is an extremely accurate pointing device. With our built-in eye tracking in each lens, we believe we've unlocked the ultimate hands-free user interface.
I like to say, if it doesn't break the laws of physics, then it's possible. And proving that something like Mojo Lens is possible motivates us each and every day to invent the future. Ultimately, we believe that we can help people achieve their potential without sacrificing their humanity. That's the promise of invisible computing. Thank you very much for your time today. Eyes up.
All right. Hold on a second, or have I got to get back here?
That actually works in practice.
So, sorry, here we go. I need to figure out it. There we go. Okay. So I'll take questions in just a moment. There's a lot there, clearly. We're talking about world-changing technology in ways that we hardly understand, but that are pretty profound. It's both scary, but it also is unbelievably impactful and with amazing potential. So let's see. There we go. Here. So the next one we're looking at, I mentioned before this VR. And would like to share this. A photojournalist who was a war photojournalist worked with the fellow I met at MIT, and they put together a VR experience that's quite extraordinary. I'd like to see if we might be able to bring it into Delivery International's convention in Australia. So let me show you what this is all about.
This project was born out of frustration as a photojournalist. I have covered conflicts for the last 15 years, and I knew I could not just do the same when I became a father. Yet, I was not done with trying to understand wars. My friend in Israel, when they know I'm heading for Gaza, cannot help themselves but to wish me luck and to stay safe. They believe a lot of people in Gaza are irrational. But also when I spend weeks in Gaza working and I'm about to return to Israel, my Palestinian friends are telling me exactly the same. Just be careful there. So there is a bigger story than the war itself, and perhaps this is the one I need to explore and share. This project is rooted in my experience going from one side to the other in many different wars and conflicts, finding that people's dreams, hopes, and nightmares are often more similar than they are different. For the audience to understand and feel that, we will use artificial intelligence, cognitive science, and the latest technologies in virtual realities.
בנשק, בדרכים אחרות שיכולות לפגוע בנפש, אם זה
Here is the concept. The Oculus Rift is a virtual reality headset. It blocks your vision and places you in a virtual world that we are creating. Fox Harrell, a professor, and Emile Bruno, a researcher, both from the MIT, will provide the analytical backbone. When the audience walks in between enemies, we will measure bias and how they physiologically respond to the installation. And in using neuroscience research, we could be able to discover how much empathy has been created. I am planning to bring the fighters of 7 other long-standing conflicts together in the very same way. You create an enemy as a kid without having met your enemy, because the society around you has created an enemy in the other. So the question is, could I be you if I was on the other side?
So this piece won many awards by Time and others. You can see it was a few years ago. It was with the Oculus Rift. But here's what this has done as well. I became involved in Rotary in a significant way, built around using Google Cardboard to address ultimately peace and conflict avoidance. From there, learned about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, about Rotary's area of focus, Rotary's 4-way test, and learn what the power of Rotary means to people, individuals, and groups in the world. And it found that there's nothing like it. There's no organization like Rotary anywhere in the world that has the reach, the impact, the brand, the power, the funds, as well as the desire among people to affect the future of the world. We work on projects that are local to our schools, to our communities, to our environment. We work on projects that are regional, and those that are state, and those that are country-based, and those that are international. We work on them all. At the heart of this, after I was at MIT and looked at this video, some of you have heard me speak in the past, and a quote that I've often used is that I've written is that violence is not a sustainable means of resolving conflict. I believe this fully, and another thought was triggered that I wrote down, which is watching this piece and speaking with Fox Harrell at MIT, which is that we must learn to fear mutual destruction more than we fear the enemy. We're at a time where we're in an escalated arms race, and that will continue. And as long as that continues, because we say, gee, if we don't, they will, we're destined towards an outcome which is not something we want. So that takes me to Canoe. Because all of these pieces that are part of what you've seen are all tied together for me. The technology, the applications, the connection, understanding, listening, ultimately to affect our future. And they're all part of a grand a vision that I continue to work, which is around how do we affect our future and how do we see that it's something that we want to leave for our families and our children. So at Canoe, I began with an idea which was connecting people. And we worked on video chat, which was enhanced with a way to talk to people and talk to kids and families, and created something quite striking. What we also found is it's hard to sell. It's hard to explain what we were doing. And it's video chat and it's a piece of hardware. So we said, okay, let's take another pass at this. So we took that wand and we said, let's make this into a tool that could help kids learn, and started by connecting it with books, which we now have done. And now we're looking at connecting it with television. So now imagine interactive television, where a child, instead of sitting in front of a screen passively watching a show, because the Saturday morning cartoon shows have improved, they're now on topics which relate to social emotional learning, not the violence that we grew up with where Wile E. Coyote dropped anvils on Roadrunner, which was what I remember. That's not true anymore. Now it's much, much more entertaining, but still valuable for kids. So I looked at this and said, gee, could we create a cartoon that could be a cartoon that focuses not just on Rotary's UN Strategic Sustainable Development Goals, but what if we were to create a cartoon that could be Rotary cartoon that could be put in the living rooms of families around the world, designed for children from 3 to 7, where these kids could participate, not just watch passively about actual examples of Rotary's areas of focus where there's been impact, but instead where the children could participate in this and learn and actually begin to think about themselves as people who are contributing to society. And you can plant the seeds at a very young age. And I've discussed this again with MIT and other developmental psychologists. What could we do to engage children, to affect their thinking, to give them the resiliency so that when the time comes when they have to decide, gee, is the only way forward for us to build the bigger, stronger club? Or maybe there's a breakout, maybe there's another way to come together in this world and to do something else that goes beyond this thinking that we've lived with for millennia. We're talking about a change that has to be a species change, but right now we're on this one little planet. And right now, if we continue on the path we're on, it's a little bit dark. So I said, what could we do? So I'll show you a piece that just gives a hint of the use of a wand in a way that can spark a child's imagination and learning. And it's about a minute. So let's take a look.
Come on, honey, you got it. Yeah, that's it.
You learned through movement. You learned through play. You learned through imagination. We didn't invent learning.
Let's make a story together.
But together,
Once upon a
we
time.
can make learning magic. Canoe Magic Wand. Get yours today.
So I continue to work at this and see where we can take it. But the idea is to take a platform that could affect children's thinking, growth, academic development, social emotional learning, but to tie it into worthy causes. And again, ideas come and go, but you need to start with crazy ideas. And the idea of eventually a Rotary branded video that could become something that could propel Rotary further in the minds of young children and families around the world, and begin to plant the ideas of things that kids can do and what they can achieve and how they can contribute. And to do this with Rotary branding and support. So spark of an idea, we'll see where it goes, but I'm chipping away at it. So let's look back. So snowball that becomes many snowballs, and many of which turn into long tails. That's really the history of the Global Impact Group. That's what our team is doing. And right now, it's all about, at this point, where we go. And our need at this point is support, and that support with members. So reaching out to look at team members as a part of who are in our club, and those in at the Alpharetta Club and other clubs that are supporting us, districts, to see what type of support we can get. In Melbourne, we'll need this. In Australia, TBD, what we do with Rotary International, but we're working on all elements, breakout session, possibly main stage presentation, certainly driving to see if we can do the ITZ, Innovative Technology Zone as well for a second year and support Rotary, bringing technology to Rotarians with big ideas that can impact us all and affect our future in the way that we believe is so important. Thank you very much. We'd love to take some questions.
Brian Donahue, our director this morning of AV and all, has asked questions for our guest speaker to be made from the podium. So he can come forward rather than pass the mic this morning. Here, for anyone with a question for Jim Monkey.
The only question I have for Jim is how in the world does he have the hours of the day to do that? This isn't a question for Jim, but it's sort of a call to action, leading on what Jim just said about Melbourne. We are going to Melbourne to try to continue this process of convincing Rotary that this is the age and this is the measure by which we need to go forward to make sure Rotary maintains its significance in the world. So I'm going to Melbourne, and what we need is more people to go to Melbourne, to the international convention, to participate, to explain these processes and these technologies to other Rotarians. So if anybody is interested in going to Melbourne for this opportunity to really expand the scope of Rotary, please either let me know, or Jim know, or Jane and Louie know, because we really need some help there. Now, Buddy was there longer than I was in Houston, and he was amazing, and hopefully Buddy will be there. But we need other individuals to help come to Rotary in Melbourne to spread the word.
What are the dates?
May 27th to 31st, I think. Is that right?
25th, 29th.
25th to 29th of May. So if you're all interested, talk to me about it, because we really do need the ground support there.
Thank you. Skip, what I can say as well, for people that haven't been to an annual convention, it's extraordinary. When you see a collection of 20,000 or so, and it's been as high as 35,000 Rotarians from around the world come together, all with a common cause, all selfless, supporting what they'd like to achieve and volunteer. They're volunteering their time and money as well. And when you see the flag ceremony, the opening ceremony in a conference hall holding 20,000 people, it's completely moving. And you realize that what we're part of is much, much bigger than we see day to day, but whose influence we drive by our actions continuously, our small actions and our large actions. Someone asked what AR is. Oh, there you go. Hey, good to see you, Rich.
Hey, how you doing, Jim? I think I know you're doing your usual high energy thing. Looking at the contact lens. For my first thought on it, I looked at it and thought, for those of you who do Star Trek Next Generation, the first thing I thought it was the first step to being part of the board. The second, though, my question on that is, it seems to me that it's a big software issue, if you will. Also with that, how are you going to be able to program that lens to give you the information you want, as opposed to a whole flood of other information? I assume that's something you've thought about, and I assume that's something you're working on. I'd be curious to hear about that.
Sure, thanks. So my involvement is as an advisor to the company, and that came about because of my last company, iFluence, where we developed wearable eye tracking. And I met with Drew early on, before he was just starting Mojo Vision. He was taken by what we were doing, and so I became a part and then advised him on ways that you can do eye tracking to control what you see. And you saw that. So, and that's part of the answer, Rich. What you have is a device that basically is an internet portal. And what you're doing is controlling access to the internet information you would like with settings you create, and with an interface that results from you looking. It just is you looking at what you see in your field of view, which is what we did at iFluence, and you control what you get, what you see when you want it. So again, what Steve spoke about and Mike spoke about and Drew spoke about on the video are making sure that the information is what you need when you need it. Because yes, think about, you can go down one side and say, good Lord, you've got something in your eyes. When you close your eyes, it's still showing you information. And where are the limits? So they have an ethical board as well that's very substantial, looking at what this means related to privacy, related to sharing, as well as cognitive load on an individual and what this means to your mind as you have access to information. It's a balance that's uncanny. But you mentioned the idea of Borg, but we as humans are heading towards more and more self-modifications. This is happening. We have a pacemaker, which people don't think twice about. We did it the early days. But today, what we're doing to affect ourselves And not only that, but with optogenetics to change our proteins and affect our response to new forms of treatment. And many technologies are quite extraordinary. So yes, the answer is careful consideration for how humans can manage ourselves with this type of technology as individuals and collectively.
So, any other questions for our speaker? I wouldn't even know how to form a question. Thank you, Tim, so much. And the guests in the room, we have this element forehand. It's a prosthetic that was designed by a person in Rotary. And this is going to be, one of these will be distributed somewhere in the world where it's needed for a person in the name of Jim Margraf for his great presentation.